Hello everyone, Russ of Aquarimax here. It's Tuesday at 5:30 Mountain US time. That's time for a live stream. So I thought I would share with you today my Endlers live bears. These are blue star Endlers as they devour a food pellet, a sinking food pellet. They have become they filled up the tank. There's a lot of Endlers in here, and hopefully by having them concentrate in one spot, you'll be able to see some of the beautiful colors of those males and see what kind of a population I've got. Hey, Little Bob's already here. Very nice. Taco John's already here. Hi, Taco John's. Welcome everyone. Gator Tracks Aquatics. Hey, welcome. And Little Bob says my guppies have had 3 sets of babies. Ah, they take after my Endlers. They're all doing the same thing. Cool. What kind of guppies do you have? Martin Y. Hi. How's it going? Paluri Anan Swarup. Hi. Welcome. James Room. Hola. They're overrunning the place, the guppies. Yeah, so are my Endlers. They're going crazy. Can anybody tell me if these Endlers are in focus? I want to make sure I get some good focus so you can see their patterns and colors. How are they looking? Do I need to adjust them, or are they looking okay? Oh, we already got 7 likes. Excellent. Thank you. And, or not, sorry, 4 likes and 7 people in. 8 people in. Very nice. I just found out that YouTube is now going to show the chats during the replay. So if anybody catches this again, they're going to see your chats, apparently. So that's kind of exciting. I've been wondering when they're going to do that, and now they finally have. I've got some news for you as we're checking out the Endlers here. Oh, Little Bob says, I was expecting lots of death as I'm somewhat new to guppies, but no die-off whatsoever. They are cute, but there are millions of them. Yeah, actually, that was one reason why I stopped keeping guppies. I love guppies, but I just couldn't deal with all the numbers. It was tough. Potato Derp, hello, welcome. Paul Kuntz, also welcome. And Ted Tryon, is there a strong current in the tank? I wouldn't say it's strong, but it's strong enough that they're definitely reacting to it. It's actually, let's see, I've got a BioWheel 200 on here. Is it a 200? Yeah, it's a 200, but the flow is throttled back with a sponge. I'm using an intake sponge that throttles the flow back quite a bit, so it's strong enough that in the spot they're in, they're reacting to it, because it's not far away from where the flow hits the bottom. But yeah, it's not too bad. In most of, I would say, 2/3 of the tank, the flow is a lot less. Little Bob says, I was watching an Alabama Boss stream when I got the message about the live comments thing. Yeah, it's pretty exciting. Little Bob says, by the way, guppies plus Endlers do not get along. So have you tried that? I know people hybridize them, but I've also heard that they are different behaviorally. So Paul Kuntz says, I am addicted to isopods now. That is, it happens. Did you get it from me? Because I have that affliction, as you may have noticed. Although I've been good this week, I haven't purchased any new isopods. Let's see. So is my video staying, everyone? Can you see me? Okay, so Paul Kuhn says it is my fault. I afflicted him with isopod addiction. What species do you have? Now, one thing I'm wondering about is YouTube recording going to pick up the movements as I go through the comments, or hopefully it just lets them scroll by as they scroll by and doesn't react to my fingers moving in the replay. Little Bob says, affliction usually means it's a bad thing. Isopoda aren't bad, they're isogods. Okay, I'll have to agree with you there. You know what? This is a funny thing. I didn't think about this, but the dynamics are going to change now, because I don't necessarily have to read out the chats for everyone to interact with them. So how's that going to change the dynamics on live streams? I don't know. Potato Drip says, I turned the temperature down in the 60-gallon tank as you said. Will the platies breed now? I hope so. We'll see. What temperature do you have them at? Usually mid to high 70s is good if you want breeding. So hopefully so. And do you see that you have big gravid females? If you're seeing them get large and gravid, and you see the gravid spots of the females developing, especially if you can see the eyes of the babies, you know that they are doing most of what they need to do, but maybe the babies, we can find out what's happening to the babies if they're actually being born, I guess is what I mean. Paul Kuntz says zebra, orange, and 2 other that I don't know what they are. Okay, so you're well on your way. You have several species already of isopods. Little Bob says, oh, by the way, my little Cory is looking much better and seems healthy and happy. Good to hear. And Potato Derp, hold on, I need a thermometer. Oh, okay. Yeah, you can let us know how it goes. Polar, hi, welcome. And Little Bob says, we tried using a breeder tank, but no point. Like the little breeder traps that float in the tank, yeah. I am not a big fan. I think they're too small to do most things. They're good for 1 or 2 things, but most of those things they're good for are not actually holding birds of fry, in my opinion. Unless they're some of the bigger ones, especially the ones that have water flow that you can add to them and things, those can work. But the small ones I'm not a big fan of. I think like sometimes you can stress the females out by putting them in there anyway, so sort of defeats the point. So, what's the verdict, everyone? Are the fish in focus or not? They look good to me. I can see their colors, but I'm just wondering how they look to you. Rosie McLeod says, is there anything that can go with my female betta in my 3.5 gallon tank? Well, it depends to a large degree on your betta's personality. I would say there are a few things you can try. You could try some snails. Various species of snails, like a ram's horn snail, could work. But it depends. I've had bettas that will attack them. So you could try that. You could also try a ghost shrimp. They will sometimes do well with bettas, and other times the bettas will attack them. So you just have to kind of try it and see what happens. But there's not very much that I would recommend, honestly, keeping with bettas in a tank that small, except for a few species of snails. It doesn't have to be ram's horns. I mean, you could do pond snails. You could even do a mystery snail. You'd have to make sure it got enough to eat, and that might be tricky, but you could do it. You could try other species of snails, like a Malaysian trumpet snail or an assassin snail, even, as long as you make sure it gets enough food. Those are some options. Okay, and Potato Derp says, temperature-wise, 77.7 degrees Celsius. Ah! And then he says, just kidding, of course, so that's good. Little Bob says, I just have plants in there, and the substrate is just stones for his tank and for his guppies. Okay, so 77.7 degrees Fahrenheit, that's not bad. Yeah, we can, that should be a good temperature for breeding pletties at. They're at that temperature, it's not at exactly the upper limit, but it is on the kind of the warmer side of things, which should help speed up breeding. So I would say that's a pretty comfortable temperature for them. All right, 9 likes. Someone just hit the like button. Thank you for doing that. Okay. Oh, Little Bob says, by the way, we can clearly see the fish. Sorry for not answering. Okay, good. I'm glad. I have my my brightness turned down a little bit, so I can see, I see the color, but I'm not sure how clear they are. So that's good to know that they're looking clear for you. Good. And Little Bob says, I'm only seeing 2 likes. I got 10 up here now. Paul Kuntz says, where do you buy isopods? Well, assuming you're in the USA, a couple of good places, depending on how crazy you want to go on types and stuff. Bugs in Cyberspace is a good place to buy quite a few different varieties, including some fancy varieties, and they generally stock, a good number of the normal types, the utilitarian types, and so on. So I like that site, and I have gotten some of my isopods from them, from Peter at Bugs in Cyberspace. CaptiveIsopoda.com is great if you want to get into some of the fancier types as well as the normal types. He's got crazy things over there. Alan does. That's where I got my Porcelio Hoffmannsegei, my Titans, and he has lots of other Spanish exotics and other types of exotics and color morphs and everything. So that's a good place. There are others too. Roachcrossing.com has pretty good variety of isopods, and the Facebook, I think it's called Isopod Classifieds on Facebook, has a good selection too. And if you're not in the US, well, whether you are or not, it's a good site because there are plenty of people who are in the US and plenty of people who are in Europe that are selling, some people in Asia who are selling. So you have some options if you're on that site, on the Facebook group. Rosie McLeod says, if I put her in my old 5.5 gallon, is there any fish I can add? I would say, yeah, you'd still have to be pretty cautious, but you could do a small group of dwarf cories, like Corydoras hestatus or something like that. Let's see, they would be a fairly decent option. Some people do coolie loaches with them. I don't really like to do coolie loaches with bettas because coolie loaches kind of prefer cooler water and bettas prefer warmer water, so it's not my favorite thing to do. Let's see, what else could you do? Some people do white clouds, but again, I have the same issue with that particular deal, is that they don't, you know, the temperature, water temperatures, they kind of don't agree so much with water temperature. So I would say some dwarf cories, or a small group of dwarf cories, maybe 5 or 6 of them. That's one option. Lidlbob says, I restarted at 10 now. Okay, so now it's working. Lidlbob says, Rosie, please do upgrade her. I don't care what people say. They can't eat anything smaller than a 5 gallon. You want them healthy to live long. The bigger the better, really. Potato Drip says, the female platies don't seem pregnant, but the male platy has been strutting his stuff in front of the wagtail female. Okay, well, that's a good start. But if they're not pregnant, that's puzzling. How many platies do you have, and how many varieties do you have? HC Aqua, hello, welcome. Little Bob asks where my wife is. She is at a dance studio on Tuesday nights. She teaches class, and my daughter takes a class, so they're there for 3 hours, and it takes about 20-25 minutes to get there, so they're gone for about 4 hours on Tuesdays. And that is why, even though I enjoy doing live streams with my wife, and I would prefer to do that, this is the chunk of time that I have when I can do it, and there's not other things going on. So that's why I do it on Tuesdays. And occasionally I hope to get my wife doing it with me, but yeah, for now, this is when I have a time slot. HC Aqua says, have you ever kept triops in an aquarium? I just found out that they're in the wild here and wanted to try it. Oh yeah, I've kept triops many, many times. There's even a really old video on my channel about it that shows one of the larger triops that I raised. It's kind of a sad video in that I don't really talk or anything during it. You can see it. Pretty good HD shots of the triops, though. That's about that's about all I can think of right now to say about it. But I love triops. They are very they're pretty easy once you get past a few difficulties. Like getting the babies when they're first hatched to have enough food without being overwhelmed by bacteria is a little tricky. One trick that I like to use with triops to help them eat is to, when they're tiny babies, is to give them microworms. They tend to eat those and grow really well on them, so you just throw a few microworms in there as soon as they hatch, and then they'll eat those for a couple of days and get past the critical period. Once they're a few days old, they usually do pretty well. Polar said, what is the plant light? Oh, in this tank? This is a Finex 24/7. I am not sure how I feel about it yet. I'm trying it out for the first time, and I like some things about it, but one problem is right now I'm battling algae a little bit in this tank. I think I planted it pretty heavily, and I have a siesta period, and I'm dosing with Flourish Excel, and that's kind of keeping the algae at bay, but I'm still battling it a little bit. And not that that's not normal. I mean, you have to be careful with that. And also the fish load is a little high in the tank, so that's part of the issue too. I'm thinking about switching to injected CO2. I just wanted to see if I could do it with Flourish Excel with this particular setup, and I'm not sure that it's going to work or not. Mark Osborne, hi there, welcome. Potato Rip says, I have 1 male and 4 female platies. Each are different strains because not only genetic mixing makes a healthy population, but the color mixing will be interesting. Can be. Years and years and years ago, I got some feeder platies of different types and put them all together, and the babies turned out pretty interesting. I got some blue ones, and I got the orange ones and different things. Little Bob says you should keep snakes. I have before. I might do it again. My daughter's really interested in getting a rough green snake or a smooth green snake, one of those two. She doesn't want to get one that eats rodents because she had a pet rat and she loves rats and would feel weird about giving it rats or mice, even frozen, and thawed, which is what we would do if we were going to do that. She's not too comfortable about that, but something that is insectivorous like a green snake she could do. HC Aqua says, cool, are they compatible with fish or shrimp? Which one are we talking about? Sorry, I lost track. Oh, triops. Not exactly. Usually, it depends on the size. I mean, you can put them in a tank in a planted tank, they'll usually nibble on plants. In a tank with other fish, they can survive if they're of a size where the other fish can't eat them, but they usually don't have a very long lifespan anyway, so you can put them with those things. They will try to eat and overpower anything they can catch. Fish are usually too fast for them, but they're kind of that way. It doesn't exactly work all that well. So started off solid. Hey, Aquarimax, how's the isopod millipede substrate thing going? Well, working really well. Still going well. I have been mixing some of my own. I like the Lugarti stuff that I have used, but like I said, I can make my own cheaper, so I've been experimenting with a mix based on one by Mickey M at Arachnoboards, but with some changes because of the materials that are available to me, and I'm testing that out, and it seems to be going really well so far. Basically, it is a completely organic compost with alder pellets for barbecue grills that I soak, aspen shavings for like small animals, and then lots and lots of leaf litter, including oak and maple mostly. So I'm trying that out. It seems to be working. Okay. Let's see. So Lidl Bob says, want to hear a lovely story about a little neon tetra? I would. Rosie McLeod says, if I put her in the 5.5, can I put her with rosy minnows? I wouldn't put the betta with rosy minnows. I think that tank is too small for rosy minnows. I'd go with a minimum of a 10-gallon for a small group of rosy minnows. Let's see. You could try... some people do it with neon tetras, but again, neon tetras like slightly cooler water, but they can go, if you do it kind of like 76 degrees, and then it's okay for the betta. It's a little low for the betta. It's on the higher range for neons. You could do that. Some people do that. I just kind of feel like, personally, when I do bettas, unless I'm putting them in a much larger tank, I don't really want to put them with anything. But, the snails maybe being an exception. Potato Drip says, my new wingless Drosophila melanogaster culture got infested with mites, and now all the eggs get eaten. That does happen. It does. I haven't had a lot of problems with mites with my cultures, but I know it happens to a lot of people. And one thing that I would recommend, based on, I've used this substance in other insect problems, and that is diatomaceous earth, the food grade kind. You put all of your fly cultures on a tray with a thin layer of diatomaceous earth on it, and mites can't get to it. If mites are already in it, that is a problem. And then make sure that you discard your cultures when you've had them about a month. In the winter, I don't follow that rule very closely because the cultures take so long to develop because it's cooler. But in the summer especially, if you are rotating the cultures every month, that really helps. So that may be something that can help. So Little Bob says, I was looking at my tank when I saw a neon swimming weird. It looked like it was twitching. So I came to investigate. I saw that its tail had been ripped off. Oh, what was in there that ripped off its tail? Rosie McLeod said, what kind of birds do you have? Right now, I only have a budgie. My daughter does. And I've had my own budgies as well in the past. But right now, well, I can't say that. We have 10 chickens as well. And we consider them pets as well. They come when we call them, that kind of thing. So we have 10 chickens and one budgie. And the variety of chickens we have silver lace Wyandotte, a gold lace Wyandotte, 2 Australorps, 1 black copper Marans, and an Easter egger, and 2 buff Orpingtons. And Polar says, what are the plants that you have in this tank? Well, I have a lot. I've got guppy grass. Let's see. The plants that you can see in the shot there, those are Cryptocoryne parva, a very slow, short-growing plant. I've got some rosette swords, thanks to Varanid Guy for those. And I've got a little bit of Window of Java Fern, again thanks to Varanid Guy. I've got some Kabamba that's not doing very well. I've got a couple of different cultivars of Anubias, including a really tiny petite that I made a video about, and then some other Anubias nana petite that's not as small. I've got Rotella rotundifolia and Rotella indica, I think, in here, a Ludwigia, some Hygrophila, some Ceratophyllum or hornwort, and probably a couple other things in there that I'm not thinking of right now as I look around, but that's about it. Let's see. Little Bob says, I know that they can survive without a tail, so it's neon again. Any fish can, but the baby guppies and the other neons were picking at its tail stump, so I didn't think it had much choice other than to kill it. You can't exactly operate on a tiny neon. Yeah, unless you can separate it from another fish, they're probably going to keep picking at it, unfortunately. If you could separate it, you might have a chance of getting the tail to grow back. I have had fish regenerate tail from almost nothing. So Rosie McLeod asks, what kind of fish are in the video? These are blue star Endler's live bearers. And these came from L.R. Brett's Aquatics. I started out with a couple of pairs, was it 2 or 3 pairs, and some fry, and now I have, a lot more than that. I probably have 70, 80 fish in here, including tiny fry. So Dan, I'm going to see if I can pronounce your last name. Drobolowski says, my pH is holding at 7.2. And it seems a little high for my glow light tetras, but they seem okay. Yeah, I don't think that's too bad as long as it's stable. I have a new piece of driftwood to lower the pH a bit. How long will it take to see a change in pH? Well, it depends on a lot of things. It depends on what kind of driftwood you have. Like if it's Malaysian driftwood, you'll likely see an effect more quickly than if it's another type of driftwood that doesn't leach tannins as much. So the more tannins it leaches into the water and the more amber color you see, the lower the pH. The more the pH is going to be affected and lowered, I should say it that way. But that is a temporary, it's sort of a long-term effect that it can have as it's leaching tannins, but it is a temporary effect. So after the wood stops leaching those tannins, the pH is going to go back up. And I would recommend stable pH rather than trying to keep it low, unless you use something maybe a little more sustainable, like if you decide to do water changes with partial, not complete, but partial RO water, that can help keep some of the buffers out of the water, and that can help keep your pH stable. But you have to make sure that you're always adding that same mixture to your water. It can be a little tricky. Honestly, I would say it's easier just to let your pH be stable by doing the same regimen of water changes with the same tap water that you're always using, and 7.2 is really not bad for glow light tetras. It might not be 100% optimal for them, but they can do fine, and they will adapt. They're fairly tough fish. Potato Derp says, I recently got some ghost shrimp to breed in a fishless 10-gallon tank. One shrimp already seems to have faint outlines of eggs in it. What happened? Oh, I am excited to see the population grow. Congratulations. So you mean you have buried females, or you've actually seen the larvae? Either way, it's cool. I have bred ghost shrimp and found that they have a very high mortality rate. The babies are planktonic and will float in the water column for a while and tend to beat themselves up against the glass. At least that's what I've heard happens to them, and I assume that's what happened. Is I've seen mine. I'll see the floating larvae for a while, and then the mortality rate's really high, and then I'll see a few that have transformed. Of course, I haven't bred them for like, I don't know, 15 years or something, but when I did it, that's what I would do, is see a lot of larvae, and then I'd see just a few that had metamorphosed into the benthic form, like the shape like the adult form. And they were, but they're cool. So congratulations. I hope it keeps going well for you. I think a heavily planted tank helps, in my experience. Okay, so, sorry, I'm still trying to catch up, everybody. And Little Bob says, but in a tank with guppies, there's a rusty pleco neons and a horse-faced larch, what would rip its tail off? It might have been the other neon. There's a lot of possibilities there. It's hard to pinpoint who might have done it. You have several possible culprits, unfortunately. Yeah, so Little Bob says, I thought it might use the baby trap thing, but I couldn't find the thing since I probably threw it away, knowing me. I see what you mean. Verenid Guy, welcome. I was just talking about you a little while ago. Giving you a little shout out for sending me the rosette swords and the other plants, the lace Java fern and so on. Little Bob says, fish are incapable of feeling pain, so there's that at least. Wasn't painful for it. Well, you know, there's some debate on that. I went through a really long training about fish and pain, and there's some debate of whether they actually feel pain or not. But they do react to aversive stimuli, so that's an indication that may or may not feel it, but they might. So Ted Tryon says, what is attracting these fish to the spot in your cameras? In your tank, so camera happy. Yeah, I put a pellet of sinking food right where I was going to shoot this video, and it's worked well. It looks like it's starting to peter out. They're starting to get tired of hanging around in that spot. Maybe they finished it mostly off, but they're still looking for it. But yeah, that seems to work really well. Branded guy says, I have found that chasing pH is a recipe for disaster. Even if you can have it be successful for a while, if it ever spikes or crashes, your fish are doomed. I agree. You just work with whatever pH you have. Find fish that can either adapt or are pre-adapted to your water conditions. It is just easier. But you'd be surprised how many fish can adapt. I mean, in Hawaii, when I lived there, I had neon tetras in water that comes out of the tap at 8.0. But that's what they were used to, because that's what they were in at the store. I brought them home. They did fine. Every time I changed the water, or nearly every time I changed the water, they would spawn. I never actually tried to collect the eggs or raise the babies, but there's that. So unless you're doing something like injected CO2, changing the pH long term is usually not all that. Rented guy says, with that being said, injecting CO2 will lower the pH considerably, but this is a natural and gradual change that doesn't seem to affect fish that are properly acclimated to it. Yeah, I would agree with that too. That is the one that I've done. To change pH, I have, well, it's an effect of the CO2 injection. You can't inject CO2 without lowering pH, and I have done that to boost plant growth, and that is a side effect. It really helps fish like neon tetras and cardinal tetras. They brighten up so much when you do injected CO2 and it lowers the pH. It's incredible. It's fast. Carmen Patata Anaranjada. Wow, I made it to a live stream. Hello all. Welcome. And Carmen was the one who had the shout out in my latest video with the substrate, because she asked about it. Okay, Veranda guy says, ooh, nice, thank you. Glad they made it through and lived through it. Yeah, the plants seem to be doing well. I think I'm seeing a little growth on the rosette sword and also on the rotala and so on. So yeah, thanks again. Potato Derp says, it is interesting how baby ghost shrimp are a little different than the adults and drift around unlike many other shrimp that are born fully developed. Yeah, Opaiula shrimp are the same way. They are in a planktonic stage and float around for 2 or 3 weeks before they settle down. So, and then Verena guy says, yes sir, I've noticed a lot more activity out of all my fish since starting injecting CO2. It helps that they're all Central and South American fish. Yeah, that makes sense. So Polar asked, fish or geckos? And Little Bob says, that's hard. I might go for geckos though. Don't kill me, Russ. Well, I've got both, so I've got both fish and geckos. So I'm not partial to either one. I like them both. Potato Drip says, some teeny flicky thing suddenly appeared in the shrimp tank. I got the substrate from outside, so maybe dormant moina eggs warmed up and hatched. Could be. I think they're baby moina based on how they swim. Yeah, it'd be interesting to see what you got. A lot of crustaceans I've noticed swim very differently when they first hatch than they do a few days later when they start to develop a more adult shape and size. So I would recommend, I would be interested to see what you got. I mean, it could be anything. It could be cyclops or other copepods. Could be a lot of different things. Well, we've got up to 12 likes. Thank you, everyone. I'm excited about that. Unfortunately, I'm going to need to quit pretty soon here because I've got someone coming over to buy critters, to buy some isopods and some plants from vivariums and things like that. So thank you for those of you who joined today, and thank you for all of your comments and contributions, and I look forward to our next live stream. Probably do it at the same time next week. Little Bob says, hey Russ, would your wife be okay with feeding amphibians? You mean like feeding them to whom? To what? Like feeding them to a snake? Ah, probably, because we're talking about that. Yes. Yeah, HC Aqua, thanks for the stream. Yeah, next week, same time, 5:30 Mountain Time, I'm going to try to do another live stream. So glad you were here. Verena Guy, thank you. Yep, glad you caught the tail end too. And yeah, I don't know. I don't think we can get away with the amphibians for feeding to a snake around here. Probably not. But I'm glad the live stream didn't freeze this time. I've been having problems with that lately. Maybe it just doesn't like looking at my face. It'd rather look at blue star antlers. I don't know. But I better cut out now. Look forward to an unboxing. It's my next video is going to be a fun unboxing. And have a great week.